Mirror, mirror, and aftermath, show the me on a different path. The face I'd wear on this same day, if I lived my life another way. Hello ladies, gentlemen, and others. My name is Dan, the voice behind that Kaito Dan, and it's been a little while now since RWBY Ice Queendom was first revealed to quite the swell of excitement and intrigue. The fandom and beyond have been abuzz since then with speculation and hype for this landmark new piece of RWBY goodness, and not long after the reveal of the upcoming anime, we got new details via Rooster Teeth's Jeff Yetter touching on some key additional information, like what first sparked the creation of the project, and details on the episode's format and release schedule. The biggest takeaway though came in regards to where this all stands canon and story-wise. Many of us wondered at first if this was gonna be a faithful adaptation of the Beacon arc, a reboot of said arc, or a non-canon story set in an alternate universe. Well, it turns out Ice Queendom is sort of a mixture of all of these, as it will combine the canon of the old Beacon arc with some fresh new material in an approach that Jeff has referred to as Canon-adjacent. The first two episodes will start us off by recapping much of volumes 1 and 2, before we then dive into a new adventure that could realistically have taken place during this time and prior to the events of volume 3. And though the phrase canon-adjacent can be a little confusing as to what it means, it's not all that different to how the RWBY have treated story aspects in other side material for RWBY, like the mangas or Grim Eclipse, where the setting, lore, and cast remain fundamentally the same, but the events taking place are pretty much non-canon until the main web animation references them. Ice Queendom is basically in that same grey area, but it's also going to be playing off like an alternate universe story that's still based in the canon universe, probably so the anime team can play looser with the canon without being chained down by it, creating a new optional divergence sandwiched between the end of Volume 2 and the start of Volume 3, so you can follow it or ignore it and still be satisfied regardless. A weird way to go about it, sure, and personally, I wish it didn't mean we only had 2 episodes to cram the first 2 volumes into the recap segment, but until we get the full picture, we'll have to wait and see how well the story does actually turn out to be to make up for this approach and all the confusion along with it. And speaking of the story, let's focus on what I think this new adventure could entail. The most obvious aspect is Weiss will definitely be the focus character. She's inspired the show's title after all, and is literally the poster child leading most of the marketing. Beyond that, while Jeff made a point to say that Ice Queendom is not an alternate universe story, I do believe there will still be some other world element going on, as I mentioned in my initial breakdown video that the website's staff page has a credit for Rui Tomono under Alternate World Image Concept, implying, to me at least, the new adventure won't be set in regular Remnant specifically, but rather this alternate world that somehow will still exist in Remnant. Worlds within worlds and finding yourself in a world not unlike your own are fantastical concepts which would fit right at home in this fantasy universe inspired by such fables and legends. Plus, having an adventure set in a world that's not the real Remnant would give a good excuse as to why these events aren't brought up again in later volumes, as we'll likely end the anime with something causing those involved to assume it was either a weird dream or their whole memory of the event is wiped clean. I would even go as far as to speculate that the alternate world will turn out to be a mirror world, a narrative concept where people are thematically reversed from how they are in the original, like the lone wolf sourpuss is now a charismatic playboy. It'd be the most fitting approach on a thematic level for Weiss, given, mirrors are a staple theme of her vocal songs, let alone a key element of her inspiration's tale. And the initial trailer did cut to the two Weisses shot at the end with a glass break transition, so we may already have our first clue to a mirror world being legit. This idea is also supported by the comparisons found in the two Weiss designs for the anime. While regular Weiss is still rocking her iconic combat skirt look that is fit for the job of a huntress, Mirror Weiss looks like she's taken the path of the Elysian military, as her garb is very much like that of a general. What's also interesting is the lack of a side ponytail and the iconic scar over her left eye, two physical features that are tied to Weiss's huntress path. The ponytail has been discussed as a symbol of her rebellious nature against her upbringing and background, whilst the scar of course came from the fight with the armored knight seen in the white trailer, which expanded material has suggested was a trial set by Jacques for Weiss to earn her right to go to Beacon. Without those two details to her appearance, it's implying that Mirror Weiss took a different direction to her life than that of a huntress, which also means she never went to Beacon, where we see her other self thaw out from being the prideful, judgmental, high-class brat that she portrayed herself as at this time early on. It's why then I feel in my gut that Mirror Weiss is going to be this new adventure's main antagonist of sorts, those negative aspects combining with military trained focus, coldness and might to create a more bitter Ice Queen, who challenges regular Weiss on a physical and personal level. Her efforts to stop her alternate self's actions and get back home, giving Weiss plenty of opportunities to learn some key lessons along the way that helps her continue to grow as a person. Basically, I think this new adventure is going to be all about Weiss going on her own sort of Alice in Wonderland / The Wizard of Oz sort of journey. That is, one part a quest to return home and another part secret life lesson. So, how do we get to this mirror world and kickstart the new adventure? Well, since it will take place after the recapped Volume 2, let's start by imagining that Weiss is walking through the streets of Vale looking rather conflicted. We see she's starting to second guess if she's made the right choices in life up till now, as a result of Oobleck grilling her on her motivations back in Mountain Glen, and Weiss just barely getting out of the Vale breach in one piece, positioning Weiss in the perfect vulnerable mental state for the challenges to come to leave an impact on her. And it also helps this adventure feel more like something born from past events, making it feel like a solid connecting link between volumes 2 and 3, rather than just a side adventure with no intentions to play into the major and personal arcs it's surrounded by. Soon, Weiss comes across an antique store that draws her interest, because, you know, a high-class lady like Weiss probably loves herself some fine item comfort shopping to take her mind off things. And it's here that she finds a mysterious looking mirror that, unbeknownst to her, has some magic within. Where that magic comes from, I'll discuss a plausible reason later on. But for now, its powers latch on to Weiss's conflictions, and suddenly she starts to feel very sleepy, almost like she's falling deep into a hole before blacking out. She then wakes up to find herself in what she assumes is still Remnant, only things look noticeably different. What was once a typical sunny day in the rural city of Vale is now a gloomy, frigid kingdom. As she wanders around trying to figure out what's going on, Weiss notices that civilians are avoiding her in a panic, and those she is able to speak with have no idea what a beacon or a huntress is. Turns out, what was once Beacon Academy is now a frostbitten castle standing above a massive storm that is trapping the lower city and its people in eternal snow. And the one ruling this kingdom is the distant and cruel Mirror Weiss, who commands her army of mechs and soldiers to ward off any who would dare take her down and stop this endless winter. Which of course throws regular Weiss for a loop, still unsure of what's going on and if this is all real, let alone if she can get back home. What follows would be a story of Weiss reckoning that stopping her alternate self will cause the power that brought her here to send her back home. and to do that, she'll eventually take part in a rebellion, which of course means that Weiss will need some allies, which, hey, just so happen to be mirrored versions of her friends, each of them with new personalities and roles that not only contrast their alternate selves, but also play back into testing Weiss's growth and character through small arcs along the way. First, there's Weiss's partner, RWBY, who in this world looks more like a snow shredder than a grim slayer. So perhaps she's become what her other self wanted to be treated as in the very first episode of the main show, a normal girl with normal needs. Instead of being a budding young hero in training that inspires everyone around her, she's just another timid, weak in confidence regular citizen trying to cope as best she can with her current livelihood, thus her trying to have some fun in the snow. She clearly lacks the hopeful heart that her regular self has that would motivate her to take action against such tyranny. So now it's up to Weiss to inspire her instead, for herself and for others, making for a nice bit of charming reflection on how far these two have come and the impact that Little Red has had on her partner since their rough start. This providing us as well with our first trial for Weiss, testing her ability to make positive connections. As for Yang, at first I actually pictured her mirror self being a selfish bandit with a vindictive edge, kinda like her mum, to contrast her rambunctious yet loving nature. But because Weiss wouldn't know that Raven is Yang's mum yet, I looked to a different approach. This quick-to-brawl free spirit is now a soldier for the Shneen military, someone who would only fight as a last resort, because she would rather enforce the law than bend it, if it means that she and her sister can live in some comfort. Though her working for the one responsible for their strife causes some divide between the two sisters. The major spark behind this direction is because, unlike her normal self, Mirror Yang is content with still living a grounded life, because venturing into the unknown scares her. Yeah, life is hard now, but what if she can't handle the tougher trials of the outside world? What if it leads to even more misery for herself and RWBY? Better than to just do what she can to get by in the current status quo, even if it means doing something that she may not personally like. Thus, we get our second trial for Weiss, testing her will to not be afraid of the unknown in her future. Like Mirror Yang, Weiss has these concerns about her ability to handle all the struggles that will continue to come her way the more she branches out into that uncertain future. But after seeing how unhappy this Yang is by refusing to break free of the binds that she's placed upon her just for some false form of happiness, then Weiss comes in to use her recent growth born from overcoming the trials she has faced so far since leaving Beacon to inspire Yang into taking the initiative and reach out to the world once more. Because not only will that make her happy, it can give her chances to find others who will be there for her through the tough times, just like Weiss herself has gotten through all her trials so far thanks to the support of her teammates and the other friends at Beacon. It'd also be a solid way to have a bit on how Weiss looks at the bond that RWBY and Yang share as sisters and how it compares to her bond with Winter, being happy that she can bring these two closer together and hoping that she can continue to feel the same for her sister despite being on separate paths in life. Then there's Mira Blake, and the idea I have for her role feels so perfect, I'll be bummed to hell and back if it doesn't come to pass, should this whole mirror world concept be accurate. That's cause this Blake has to be another rebel trying to stop Mirror Weiss, but with less than peaceful means. Unlike her normal self, this ninja is more open to using violence and destruction to topple the Ice Queen, whose actions have caused her citizens, especially this world's fullness, a lot of pain and misery, even if others may not agree with the Catgirl's methods of fighting back. To put it bluntly, Mira Blake is the same kind of violent renegade that Adam was, the person that regular Blake feared becoming if she didn't cut ties with him. and of course, is the kind of person that regular Weiss assumed all Faunists were like before learning the error of her ways once she got to know more about Blake and others who have understandable hatred for her family. Here we have a real big test for Weiss, as this will be the evaluation of whether or not she has the will to do right for those who have suffered under her family's name. Though in this instance it's the actions of her otherworld self that she must not shy away from if she wants to create a better world. It would also go some way in giving us more of the racism content that many of us in the RWBY fandom has wished to be explored more over the years. Plus, I just like the idea of this also giving us Rebel Blake and Soldier Yang button heads as opposed to their real world selves. We'd start out by seeing them as enemies whose arguments would keep Weiss on her toes if she wants to keep this rebellion from falling apart, before eventually the two go from frenemies with a shared cause to close friends, maybe more. Yes, that sounds like the cheesiest of shipping fanfic premises, but hey, don't act like Bumblebee fans won't eat that up in spades. Speeding through the rest of the cast now, while their designs suggest that they'll probably be the same as their regular selves, I would love it if Ren and Nora switched roles, so now Nora is the level-headed, mature half of the pair, and Ren is the more expressive and energetic half, remixing their dynamic a little while they still remain largely as the source of comedy, even as part of the rebellion. You can't have this adventure be nothing but serious character drama, you still need the laughs, and even in a mirror world, these two would probably be the best in that department to handle all the comedy. Plus, this would also give Weiss inspiration to learn how she still must make an effort to enjoy her life in spite of the troubles she faces. Then we have Mirror Jean, who even with his "my mother knitted this for me" winter gear, I picture maybe being another member of the Schnee military. But compared to Yang or his super inexperienced real world self, Mirror Jean is one of the best in the young ranks, a promising young knight whose praise and respect amongst the Ice Queen's forces makes it all the harder on him to accept that he's helping the ruler who's making the people he's sworn to protect suffer. We see he wrestles with wanting to do more, but he is loyal to his duty, thinking that it's the best way he can do something for those in need, even if it means sometimes he's ordered to stand against them as per his queen's unjust ruling. The lesson here will then reflect on something that Weiss herself brought up back in Mountain Glen, as well as her earlier conundrum prior to being whisked away to this world. The struggle between acting on your own desires and the requirements of your job as a protector of the people. Weiss is thinking that she has to decide between focusing on one or the other, when really she can do both. Follow a path that will make her happy, but also be there for those in need, because those doubts shouldn't stop her from doing the right thing, and this is something that Weiss eventually comes to terms with alongside the Mirrored Blonde. But just because this is another lesson that Weiss will have to pick up, doesn't mean that I think it's an arc that she herself has to be the major influence in. Because I like the idea of the stuff with Mirror Jean being something explored and developed over the course of the adventure, and with certain other individuals at play, with the knight starting out as a constant, reluctant rival force to the rebellion before eventually siding with the heroes. This way we'd have a notable face amongst the opposing side beyond the distant Mirror Weiss, and it's through Jean that we get some time exploring the castle, the high society sections of the kingdom that's probably put in less strife than those below, and other places that regular Weiss and company can't access all the time, so we can flesh out this world some more and check in with the ongoing reaction of our major antagonist. So if Weiss won't be always there to help Mirror Jean slowly grow from conflicted knight to emboldened hero, who will spark this change? Well, that's why I would say Mirror Pyrrha comes in. See, Pyrrha is another one of the main cast with a strikingly different alternate design shown off, maybe even the biggest contrast, as she looks more suited for a ball than a battlefield, and that has to be for a reason. Also, yes, it's damn near the same dress that Weiss wore back at the gala in Volume 4, which lends itself even more to this new adventure being something in a world born from Weiss's own thoughts. So this design has me thinking then that if Mira Pira is another character who isn't a fighter, maybe she's someone who lives in the previously mentioned high society section of the kingdom as a noble or a famous celebrity. For someone who in the real world has a lot of her character tied to her status as a talented, successful fighter, for better or for worse, I think that's a pretty solid base for a mirror reflection change. And instead of being torn between the destiny that she worked hard to reach and the happiness that may cause her to split away from those goals, this Pira is torn between wanting to do more for her kingdom and her position as just a regular, albeit high status citizen, making her feel too weak to make any real difference. At least until she meets a certain blonde knight. Both Mira Jean and Pira find common ground in feeling torn between the world they live in and their deeper desires. But they also bond over other things, like Pira being enamored with Jean's life as a soldier, and Jean in turn finding wonder in the smaller thrills that she experiences as a citizen. Again, we get to explore more of this world beyond just Weiss's rebellion through these two kindred spirits, and many of us Arcos fans get some bittersweet joy in seeing these two share a touching relationship that has sadly been robbed of their counterparts in the real Remnant for several years now. We also make sure that Pira gets a moment with Weiss so both can pick up their key lesson about status and how both of them shouldn't let such things define them. Weiss will learn a lot in the coming volumes about how to be more than just a member of the Schnee family, so this would be quite handy indeed for her to pick up now, even in this weird alternate world. And this would give good inspiration as well for Mira Pira to do her part for the people in the higher levels of the kingdom. Though this also puts some tension between her and Jean, who's still unsure about what to do, especially as the Ice Queen is growing more and more toxic and dangerous as a leader. Cut to the final battle, and perhaps Pira is aiding civilians evacuated from areas being damaged by the fighting, and just as it looks like she's about to die in the destruction, she's saved by a now anti-Ice Queen Jean. There will be no Arcos death in this world, folks. Just this once, everybody lives! Which will only make events to come hurt even more, but we move on. Of course, there'll likely be other characters, both old and new, that could play some part in the adventure as well, but just for the ones that we know are going to be involved so far, I think any of this would offer quite the engaging material worth being invested in, and even in this weird canon-adjacent bubble, especially for those of us who have already experienced much of these characters' adventures so far, and can find some fun fanservice appeal in what's basically what-if versions of many of our favourites, but with arcs that feel deeply tied to their canon versions. This then culminates in Weiss finally confronting her alternate self in the final charge of the rebellion versus the Ice Queen's forces, and it's here we learn what made Mira Weiss become the Ice Queen she is now. Maybe she came into power at a young age, and though she wished to do well for her kingdom, the doubts, loneliness, and burdens caused her to grow bitter and depressed. This then attracted a brand new Grimm that could latch onto those negative emotions and basically possess Weiss, locking all other emotion away and leaving the once good young queen now a bitter tyrant with a frozen heart. Combined as well with Weiss's semblance, and the Grimm is now able to create the storm surrounding the kingdom that grows stronger the more Weiss's darker emotions grow more intense. Meaning if we are to see the kingdom freed, regular Weiss and company had to defeat the Grimm, who for extra special fan service could actually fight in an armoured knight form much like that white trailer. Eventually though, the battle is won when regular Weiss realizes that this whole adventure is about her facing her doubts rather than running from them. Thus, she defeats the Ice Queen by comforting her mirrored self. The Ice Queen gets the love and comfort that she's been lacking all this time, and the real Weiss comes into terms with her fears and doubts so she can use them as motivation rather than a hindrance, now feeling fully prepared to continue down this path that she's on with confidence and hope once again. Cue the eternal snow melting away, the kingdom is now saved alongside Mira Weiss, and the celebration gets cut off as the same falling feeling that Weiss had to begin this adventure sends her back into a deep sleep, only to wake up back at Beacon in the real world. The rest of her friends are there and happy to see Weiss okay, and we have some funny misunderstandings regarding the two versions that Weiss is thinking about of her friends, before ultimately she just accepts it as a weird dream. Or was it? As the next scene that follows shows that mirror from the antique shop is now in the possession of Ozpin. Maybe he sensed the dangerous magic that survived the God Purge is trapped inside it. Or this was once a magical item of a past life of his that he maybe uses to help him overcome mental conflicts, like a magic 8-ball version of that pensive thing from Harry Potter. That could be a good way to show that, yes, while these events in this world won't be referenced in the future, in some way, the experiences did happen, and it did mean that the lessons that Weiss took to heart will remain within her even if she no longer remembers them. And since we're already in the vault, let's give one little last bit of fan service by teasing Volume 3 with a small glimpse of Amber's recovery pod, before the anime wraps up with Ruby standing at her mother's grave, echoing the first shot of Volume 3. And yeah, that's my rather long-winded and admittedly bold theory for what I think will be the story of Ice Queendom. I can't deny that a lot of it is pure wild speculation that borders on fanfiction, and as confident as I am in us getting to see a mirror world, I doubt this is exactly how the new adventure will go down. But some of the crumbs that I'm picking up from the designs, the marketing, and heck, even some of the early translations of the ending theme Awake, has me believing that whatever this new adventure is, it's still gonna tie into Weiss coming to terms with her growth as the core theme, playing off some of her inspiration's own tale for a narrative that can offer up some fun character reflection, entertaining interactions, and just plain old Elseworld thrills. Whatever Ice Queendom does end up being, it's looking to be quite the tantalizing project. The hype before this latest batch of info was already sky high, even for those outside of the fandom. But now the increased intrigue from this new information has just ramped up things with even more spice. And even if I'm completely wide of the mark with this theory, I'm still super buzzed about what is still one of the biggest landmarks this series has felt in its lifetime. And we haven't even started episode 1 yet. For now though, I think it's time that I ask you all what you think about my theory and everything that I've talked about here. Are you happy that the anime will tread new waters, or would you have preferred a traditional retelling? Do you think I'm onto something with my Mira Weiss idea? And what else are you hoping to see come the anime's premiere later this summer? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe and bell buttons and tick the notification box to make sure you get every new video from me as they drop. And follow me on Twitter at ThatKaitoDan for more on anything to do with RWBY, updates on the channel, and more. But until next time, have a good day or good night, and peace out.